Well, good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a hurricane outlook and discussion for June 5th, 2020, recorded around 9:04 a.m. Eastern Time. Our main topic of today's video is going to be Tropical Depression Cristobal, which is located here just off the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, now this is taking a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. We're kind of keying in on this area over the next several days or so to really get a better understanding of what's going to be going on here. Cristobal is eventually forecast to begin lifting north. It has done so already. The official movement now has suggested that this is now moving off towards the north-northeast here at about 7 miles per hour. Will continue to increase in the forward speed during the day today and through tomorrow. And this is going to be very important because the forward speed of this system determines when it makes landfall here in the United States along the Gulf Coast. This is the time that if you haven't already, this is the time where you want to get your supply kits ready, your evacuation, routes ready. This isn't expected to be a major hurricane or anything, but if you feel like you should evacuate, in case if this thing does become a hurricane, by all standards, it would overachieve. It's not expected to become a hurricane, but if it did, are you ready to react? Are you ready to prepare? Are you ready to evacuate? That's the questions you need to ask yourself right now. Do you have the preparedness tools in place in case if it does? Again, the water temperatures in here are slightly above the long-term average for this time of the year. And if we take a look at the actual sea surface temperatures from the CDAS methodology, it's just another way of measuring the water temperatures. This comes from tropicaltidbits.com, analyzed about 7 o'clock p.m. last night. Water temperatures in this region all throughout Cristobal's track are roughly about 27, 28, some cases 29 Celsius. These water temperatures up here, even along the shelf waters, 27, 28 Celsius. So the water temperatures in this area are more than supportive and conducive for additional strengthening. There is forecast to be some additional strengthening over the next 24 to 48 hours. After the next about 48 hours or so, conditions are going to become slightly less favorable for intensification, and there's a lot of uncertainty as to how strong this will go. And we'll get into some of that here in just a minute. Now, if we take a look here at the upper ocean heat content values, this was last updated this morning. Again, we're really keen in on this area right here. We'll cover this area out here in later today's video update. But again, our area of interest right now is this area. Generally, there is decent upper ocean heat content values. It's not really till you get right along the Louisiana coastline, the Gulf Coast, that you start to get those easily mixed waters. That's the ability for the tropical cyclone to upwell cooler and cooler water, so it becomes, very mixed, because the shelf waters, they aren't very deep at all. They're not very deep. It's very relaxed, whereas out here, like for say in the Caribbean and the Gulf, it's deeper ocean water. It's more easily, you can get warmer water to go at depth and not be mixed up as quickly. So that's the important thing, though, that throughout this journey, as it leaves the Central American coastline here and begins to track up to the north, there is decent upper ocean heat content until you get up to the shelf waters. And even the shelf waters are running here slightly above the long-term average in terms of sea surface temperature-wise, running here at about 27, 28 degrees Celsius. So there's very important, this is now of significant importance, because if Cristobal can fight off this drier air and a little bit of that shear as it moves northward, it has the ability to strengthen and modestly strengthen into a decent tropical storm. Now, the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center does show this peaking out here at hour 60 at 60 miles per hour. It is not listed here in the hour 60 time frame because we don't have it in the graphic. But it is peaked here at hour 60 at about 60 miles per hour before eventually moving inland. And this is going to be a big thing because, again, over the next several days or so, this is going to bring significant impacts to this region in terms of rain. Could bring some wind in there as well. Certainly, 60, 50, 60 miles an hour. That's going to be enough with some of the saturated ground over here to knock down some trees. It could, cut off power in some instances. So there's very decent impacts that could occur to portions of the United States Gulf Coast here over the next several days. It's not where this thing just makes landfall, though. This is going to be a heavily weighted to the east type system. It's going to be a sloppier, messier system. And we can see that here in the COD Meteorology website that is taking a look here at the visible satellite. All of this deep convection right here that's off towards the east of the system. Our center is located somewhere right in about here, and all of this convection is heavily weighted off towards the east. So that means really anywhere from the Florida Peninsula, anywhere from the I-10 corridor, the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, the heavily weighted east side of this is going to make this harder and harder to actually bundle and concentrate. Again, Cristobal is located within a broader gyre here. And if we go here to the 850 millibar vorticity, you can really see how the energy has been loosely defined here over the last several days. Now, nonetheless, there is still a decent vigorous circulation down here that as it moves off towards the north, it is going to find itself in better environment to strengthen modestly. Again, how strong this thing actually gets, though, remains to be seen because there is a lot of drier air on this side that's going to be funneling in as this area of high pressure is going to retreat, leaving subsidence behind as another trough of low pressure continues off towards the north. That's what's helping to steer the system to the north, this little trough of low pressure. Behind it, there's all the subsidence, this drier air, as noted by some of the cloud formations in this area, some of the arc-like clouds that are over down here. There is that sign of very dry air, and that dry air has been being entrained into the system currently, helping to really limit, along with the land interaction, helping to really limit any deep convection near the center. Now, again, once this does get out over water here within the next 12 hours or so, it is going to be very important. The time starts ticking as soon as this gets over water. The time is ticking and will continue to tick throughout the next while as this thing moves, closer and closer. Now, currently, if you take a look here at the vertical wind shear, again, right now it's situated in a pocket of about 20 to 25 knots of shear. Where the center is, it's about 15 to 20 knots of shear. With shear will be expecting to decrease slightly, but ever so slightly. It's not going to decrease enough. There's going to be a lot of dry air. And you notice what's happening is that around this high pressure that's kind of retreating out this way, the same thing that was helping to steer the tropical storm, what was Tropical Storm Cristobal inland here, has now been retreated and has continued to retreat now as we get this trough of low pressure that's digging in here. But you notice what's happening on the backside of this high pressure. We're getting all of this wind flow here that's coming out of the anticyclone, and that's actually going to be impeding some shear and dry air on the system. Again, you kind of see almost this baroclinic like leaf type system that we see in some of these extratropical cyclones. That is the type of feature that could be dominating the eastern half of this system. So it's definitely going to be eastern weighted. It's definitely going to be sloppy. For that reason, there's going to be a lot of heavy rainfall to the east of the system. This is the current Weather Prediction Center forecast, the WPC quantitative precipitation forecast out for the next 5 days, 120 hours. You notice here, even in the Florida Peninsula, over 2 to 3 inches of rain expected for portions of the Florida Peninsula, with flood watches up for that area. The I-10 corridor through here could see a bucket load of rain, anywhere between 3 to 5 inches as possible. Even some over 6 inches here down near New Orleans. Over 5 inches there, 6 inches here in southern Mississippi, run along the coast there, likely over about 4 to 6 inches here for portions of Mobile County southward down there. So it's very important to understand there is going to be a significant amount of rainfall to the east of the system. And you notice that flood watches have been posted accordingly for the entirety of South Florida and the Central Florida Peninsula, as well as for portions of eastern Louisiana and southeastern Mississippi. There are flood watches that have been posted for that reason. I do suspect to see more flood watches that will probably fill in with time through here. This is a tropical storm watch just off for the offshore waters there of Louisiana. So it's very important to understand there is going to be a significant amount of rainfall that's going to be occurring with the system as it's heavily weighted. Again, once this starts to get out over water today, the time is going to start ticking in terms of how long this actually has to intensify. Again, the process has already begun to lift this north. As soon as it gets over water, the time's ticking. So it does not have a lot of time, and the clock is really ticking now. So very important to understand that. Now, let's take a look at some models here. This is the 6C GFS forecast here for 1 o'clock this afternoon, or 1 o'clock this morning, rather. This is the analysis from tropicaltidbits.com. Again, that circulation is a lot more intact than the GFS did actually forecast. Even out here, you notice here on the 6Z that the GFS has certainly, this is pending between the 0Z and 6Z GFS. You notice how the circulation is a little bit tighter here on the 6Z GFS. It is a little bit more tighter, more concentrated around this area here. This is only by 8 p.m. tonight that this is now expected to be moving off the coast here, moving far enough off to actually start strengthening. I should mention there is also a tropical storm watch that has been issued because of the easterly weight system here. There has been a tropical storm watch issued for portions of the Yucatan Peninsula on the peninsula and just east of the peninsula down here. Due to the heavily easterly weighted system, tropical storm force winds sustained are certainly possible there. Now, if you take a look here at hour 30 and compare that to the 0Z GFS, the 6Z is a little bit more west in this note. There is still some uncertainty about how far west does this actually get. There is a range of possibilities here. And if we take a look here at the European model forecast for the next 24 hours, the European model is actually a lot slower with this system. This is the 0Z European model forecast here for about 8 p.m. this evening. And you notice between the two models, we'll move that back here to the 24-hour mark. You notice how there's very subtle differences. There's very subtle differences here between the two models, that there's timing differences. This matters greatly because the more time this has over water, the more time it does have to potentially strengthen, and the more time we might be able to see this ridging over top build. However, those scenarios seem a little far-fetched. There is two extremes. Now, the GFS does forecast this over the next 36 hours to become a pretty decent tropical cyclone here. It's a lot more bundled than its 6Z or than its 0Z counterpart. It is a lot more bundled. Now, there is somewhat of a warm front lobe that is kind of extending that might make this a little bit in the subtropical-ish type deal. Again, this is not expected to be very organized at all. And you notice here then by hour 54, this is a lot more concentrated on the GFS forecast than in previous runs. And you see here, even compared to the 0Z, it is further towards the west and certainly a lot stronger as this then makes landfall here. This would actually be a pretty decent tropical cyclone. This would be, down here in the 990s based on the 6Z GFS. That would be a pretty decent tropical cyclone. If we take a look here at the 10-meter winds here, that's, forecasting about 990 millibars, 998, 999. So this certainly has some potential here. Now, again, it's going to be heavily weighted off towards the east, but this is more now of a true and tried warm core tropical-like system. So it's very important to understand that there is the potential for this to strengthen on approach in. Now, contrast this to the European forecast run out here for the next about 48 hours. The European on the 0Z run was actually, it's in the same place, but it is a little bit weaker. This is showing more of that subtropical-ish type look to it, maybe extratropical. At the very least, it's not going to be well organized on the European model run. Now, the European has kind of flip-flopped in between those. This has it making landfall, though, about 7 or 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So the models differ because the GFS here is on Sunday here between about 2 o'clock or so and 7, and the European is forecasting a little bit later of a landfall anywhere between 0Z Monday and about 6Z Monday, so between 1 a.m. Monday and 7 p.m. on Sunday. So very important to understand that there is going to be a wide range of impacts from this system. And again, the main problem right now is going to be the very heavy rainfall expected for even the Florida Peninsula, but this is going to be heavily weighted to the east system. Again, based on the latest satellite images, this does now look like that this is starting to track up to the north here. And again, now the time starts ticking once this thing reemerges over water. So we're going to be watching this very carefully here over the next, certainly the next few days or so. Again, I will have another video forecast update later this afternoon going over everything. We will probably be transitioning to 3 video updates just depending on what the system's doing. So, stay tuned for that. Hope you all have a great rest of your morning and early afternoon, and I will see you guys here back later this afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.